For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Let's have a look at the Asia-Pacific markets first of all. Hong Kong's up about 2%, but everybody's really waiting for those Fed minutes, which we'll get out later today and see what their view of the US economy actually is. Japanese families are being offered $1 million to move out of the centre of Tokyo. It's heavily congested, as it always has been. That's about $7,600. They're being asked to move out to try to relieve some of the overcrowding in Tokyo and so on. The overall population in Japan, 28% of the population is over 65. That imposes its own demographic problems. But that's over the whole of Japan. This one is to get people moving out of Tokyo and into the surrounding areas. What people have to do is to move out, then they need to stay there for 5 years and prove that they are in payable employment. Otherwise, they have to pay the money back. We talked yesterday at length, and Reuters did too, about Tesla and those delivery figures which underwhelmed Wall Street actually resulted in another 12% drop in shares. We also discussed Tom Zhu, who's taken over. He was head of China as far as Tesla's concerned. Now he's taken over internationally as far as their deliveries and progress is concerned. So he's taken over not just Asia, but also the United States, including North America, most specifically Europe and so on, and the UK, to try to get sales and deliveries of Tesla cars up. Meanwhile, Tesla itself is working on what it describes as a cheaper electric vehicle. Apple is hiking its replacement battery costs by about $20. Now, you won't be surprised to learn that last year Apple lost about $1 trillion worth of its value, and it's still trying to work out where its supply chains are going to come from as it moves away from China. The ex-CEO of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, is pleading not guilty. There's a bit of a media scrum yesterday, but pleading not guilty to the 8 Fed fraud charges. There are 8 of them, which include money laundering, wire fraud, and serious fraud. And the trial actually doesn't take place until October the 2nd, but at the moment he's pleading not guilty to that. US regulators have been warning banks, and again, this is really on the back of FTX, but a lot of the other crypto risks as well. The banks have been warning, or US regulators rather, have at last come to a uniform warning. This is the Fed Deposits Insurance Group, and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. They've all come together in the United States and said, the crypto market is extremely vulnerable and it needs some kind of regulation. This is the first time that they've all spoken in unison about this. The EU now is totally demanding, it started off with Italy, France and Spain. Now all travellers from China have to have pre-departure COVID negative tests, have to prove that before they travel into Europe. Again, Europe, focusing on that, German inflation is down to 9.6%, much lower, believe it or not, than expected, helped by energy subsidies. It was 11.3% the month before. It was expected to be about 10.7%. Now it's 9.6%. But it has to be said that really that's on the back of the energy subsidies and so on that German citizens have been receiving. This isn't, I don't think it's anything to do with alleviating price pressures at all, but it seemed to, I don't believe this, but it seemed to ease the pressure on the ECB, which meets in February, and most people are expecting a 0.5% rise there. The UK, continuing with the theme of inflation, has seen food rising to 13.3% in December. That's food inflation. What I'm drawing from it is that inflation, the headline rate may not fall as quickly as people had actually hoped. And this is also because of all the additional costs of animal feed, fertilizer, and also energy as well, all adding to an increase in food prices, up 13%, over 13% in December. UK manufacturing has slumped. This adds to the narrative of maybe a recession, which started off in the last quarter, maybe extending towards 2023 and well into 2023. 10% of manufacturing customers are also, manufacturers are also saying that their customers are going to other countries, particularly in the EU, because of the increased customs complications that they have post-Brexit to deal with. Manufacturing is 10% of the economy, so it counts for quite a lot. And I did bring to your attention a forecast which I gave you. I mean, I read these things and so on, don't necessarily believe it, but it does look like gold is one of the big investment stories, is going to be one of the big investment stories of the year. It's now standing at $18.50 an ounce. The forecast is for $3,000 an ounce as the year draws in. De-dollarization of buying gold. May the yuanification of buying it. Maybe China will be buying a lot more, and there is recession fears and also market volatility adding to the attraction of the glister of gold. That is the global view this morning.
Right. So some good news coming out of the Eurozone, but we all know it's those subsidies on gas. What's going to be the clawback as regards deficit? Because those subsidies are really heavy in the Eurozone, that is reducing inflation. But what's going to be the clawback? Is that why the ECB is saying they will still continue to tighten as things go on? And some business leaders are also sort of like asking for that subsidy in the UK. They're asking the government that, hey, let's have some talk about energy, because energy costs are on the increase.
I think that far more, I mean, you can look at the German figures if you like. Again, I say that the commentators are saying here that this reduces the pressure on the ECB to raise interest rates. I don't think it does. I think that this is totally, government subsidies are totally artificial. And what we're seeing in Germany is not a real reduction in inflation. What it's seeing is prices not rising as quickly as they might because of government subsidies. Sure, people will ask for government subsidies here. I would have thought far more sensible is the government to say to energy companies and so on, not only about the windfall tax that they're proposing, but also say, oh, as the demand appears to have fallen, as winter is not as cold as people thought it was going to be, then it may be that maybe some of these energy companies should be lowering their prices far more rapidly. What they say is up like a rocket and down like a feather, don't they, as far as energy prices are concerned. I feel that would be much more constructive than merely throwing, in our case, in the UK's case, pounds at subsidies, rather than dealing with the central problem, which is how much does energy actually cost to produce.
Still on energy and subsidies, looking at the UK. In April, the UK's energy support scheme for businesses will be coming to an end, and businesses have started to complain about, or perhaps talk about, the impact on prices for retailers, for users. Do you think the government would consider perhaps extending the energy support scheme? And then on Apple. No. All right, just on Apple, just wanted to say on Apple, with regards, they haven't come out yet to tell us why the increase for the batteries, replacing batteries. But could you share with us some of your thoughts around this?
Okay, as far as Apple's concerned, no, they have. All they've said is that the components are that much more expensive. They've got a lot of things to worry about at the moment, and they are a big company, and they are also, are they not, trying to resource some of their supply into Vietnam and India away from China. So I feel as though what they're doing is protecting their present position. What it does is, though, it pushes people towards buying new phones rather than just sort of buying new batteries. I mean, this is the marketing part of what Apple are trying to do. I think it's, if it were me, if I were a politician in the UK, which I'm not, I would be saying it's too early to work out whether that subsidy scheme should be extended, because we don't know what the price of energy is going to be in April. It does look as though whatever people are saying, that the price of oil is actually come down, the price of gas is absolutely is below what it is at is below pre-Ukraine war levels, and that's partly to do with gas storage being opened up, and it's also to do with a much unheralded kind of common view from the various nations within the EU. There have been complainants, no doubt about that, but generally speaking, the feeling, the anti-Russian feeling, and the way in which the energy market is coming together, and for those poorer countries getting help from the richer ones, is something which I wasn't expecting, but it seems to have happened. So, to answer your question, I would not be doing anything right now. I'd be waiting until I have a much clearer idea of what energy prices are actually going to be.
Okay, let's start with gold. Gold generally has been on an incline since the beginning of November due to rising expectations and inflationary trends. But the optimism of the analysts that we're likely to record an explosive move for gold this year to the rate of about 20% is based on the assumption that the dollar will be weaker, that inflation will go up, and that perhaps maybe central banks, as they have been doing since November, buy more gold. Expand their gold reserves. Are these factors that the analysts have identified setting? Because although I know that you always say once the dollar is weak, people will rush and buy gold. That had been your position in the past. And then I saw Japan. Japan is paying families 1 million yen per child to leave Tokyo and go to the other 23 districts in the country. Well, that may diversify aging population. But how does that measure, how does it address Japan's need to increase its capacity for competitiveness and also its shrinking labor force, which will seem to be major priorities rather than moving people around?
All leading economies will have to deal with the changing shape of their demographics, and this is one way of reducing the overcrowding. What Japan is not mentioning, of course, I did say that the total figure of people over 65 is about 20% of the population. What those authorities in Tokyo are not telling us is what proportion of those actually live in Tokyo. So anything that reduces the urban pressure on, I don't know whether when you were last there, but I can tell you that it's a deeply overcrowded place, always has been, and it's simply unsustainable. What it also does, of course, is it pushes out people into less profitable areas and makes them work in those areas. So, I mean, from Tokyo's point of view, it seems to be quite a good idea. Whether it'll be taken up, who on earth knows? Would you want to move out of the centre of your capital city if your work actually took you to the capital city? This is, and I don't know whether, again, when you were last there, but I can tell you that public transport, once it's rather good, is extremely crowded in Tokyo, and that's where I would push that. What was your other point? We talked about Tokyo. You were also gold. I mean, all that the forecasts appear to be based on, not so much dollar weakness, but maybe fewer payments in dollars, maybe more in yuan. All central banks have been buying it up, and they tend to buy it up for all the normal reasons, which is market volatility and as a proof against inflation. That's all we're seeing right now. But if you remember, in the middle and sort of latter part of last year, a lot of central banks, including the Fed, were talking about what they described. Do you remember this word? The transitory nature of inflation. Not so transitory. Hence the increase in gold.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Rufai. Good to see you. Doctor, it's very interesting that you just ended with Michael Wilson on gold, because that takes us to the interview with the Minister of Mines and Steel, Mr. Degbite. You talked about a range of issues on the morning show. I wish every single minister in this country would come on this show to defend their portfolio and do it quarterly, not at the tail end of their administration. But there was so much that was discussed. I want to touch on the fact that Nigeria's Middle Belt has lithium deposits, and the minister was talking about how Tesla approached them back, was it August of last year, and they essentially rebuffed them because of a new policy. Let's take a listen.
When we came in, I noticed that we were going the route of petroleum again. where we export the crude oil and then we'll bring in the refined product. So we started a process, engaged stakeholders. It took us over 2 years, but today it's an official policy of government. It was approved by council, where without beneficiation, you cannot export raw ore from Nigeria anymore. That's a major achievement because that is what will create the jobs for us. We just don't want to be a raw material place. And I think it's already in the social media. In January, I was in Saudi Arabia, and the Tesla people approached us. They wanted to come and mine our lithium because our lithium is very rich. And I said, well, please, you're welcome. But we don't want you to come and mine the lithium. Come and build your battery factory here. Because the essence of mining is to make the battery. If you make the battery, then you can export it. But if you like, you come and assemble your vehicles here as well.
So this again, so it was January, not even August, excuse me. So it was much further in the year. You had an opportunity to wear and you played my Tesla reports that I filed yesterday on their deliveries yesterday. They approached you because they know that we have these mineral resources and wanted to export them. And he's saying, look, on the face of it, the policy makes sense. We want to build local content. So you build your battery factory here, which means it's foreign direct investment. You will create jobs and employ people. However, do you know what it takes to build a battery factory in a particular location? You need power. You need security. You need, I mean, Elon Musk, I remember when they built their gigafactory in Texas, he was complaining about taxes in California and so on. So they just moved over to Texas. They built a factory there because Texas has lower taxes. They have power. There are a number of things. Look at how much money Dangote has spent on his refinery. He had to build his own power source there. I mean, it was a significant investment, but he's a Nigerian. He's from here. For him, he can make that long-term investment. For a Tesla, for an Elon Musk and his people, there are other countries that have lithium deposits that can rival Nigeria. So if it's for him to say, okay, for your policy says I have to come and build a factory here and make this significant investment, there are risks. So I don't think the policy, while it has good intentions, considering that oil theft has reduced our revenues, considering that we are blessed with mineral resources, considering that the lithium, the battery making for electric vehicle industry is projected to be a multi-billion-dollar industry that is going to grow as countries move towards net zero and more environmentally friendly products. This is a decision that they should have accepted from Tesla. Maybe charge them some money to be able to take this out and export it. We're doing it with oil. We're exporting our oil and doing direct swap, direct purchase, or whatever it's called, where we don't have the refineries here to build enough of the local content, and we're just exporting our oil and bringing back refined products. So that is I think a missed opportunity for the nation. Then there was also the fact that he said there's no data for investors, and also we are unable to preempt illegal mining across the country. So there's so many opportunities missed in Nigeria's mining sector. And as Dr. asked yesterday, when you look at what it means to Australia, South Africa was in a technical recession. One of the reasons why they were able to rebound was the mining sector, because commodity prices increased and it was able to turn things around for South Africa. So mining, look at Rio Tinto and what it means to Australia. There are multi-billion-dollar mining companies across the world. And the fact that, I know the minister, he came in, he's only been around for I think 4 years or so. Something could have been done to boost the mining sector because so much money is being left on the table. Doctor talked about gold to Michael Wilson. 2020, there was that presidential artisanal mining initiative, or PAGMI, or whatever it's called. They gave him a gold bar in 2020. Remember, all those pictures were everywhere. 3 years later, where are we at with gold? Where would Nigeria be now with gold prices, as Doctor said, anticipating them rising? So the mining sector is just a huge opportunity missed. I want to get to Burna Boy. Didn't get to touch on this yesterday. Ayo, this is your clip. This is you talking about why Nigerian artists tend to take their home country for granted versus others. Let's take a listen.
This is quite unfortunate because for a number of people who spoke about this, it is that consistently they've complained about how Nigerian artists who tour around the world and behave properly come home to Nigeria where they were possibly made or where they have this is their home. And his mom said famously at the Grammys that no matter where you go to, Africa is still home. So that much respect should be given to your homegrown fans and not act as if it's a favor or you're doing people a favor by coming home to come and perform, which his opening statement seemed like.
Has anybody ever thought about this? Why is it that an artist, one of the biggest artists in the world, the number of them, as Ayo said in her comments yesterday on What's Trending, Why would they take their own home country for granted? Has anyone sat down to think about that? Why? Let me show you something. If you Google Burna Boy 2023 concerts, you will see his shows lined up for the rest of this year. He's already set for the summer. This is in Paris. Let's go back to the Paris this thing. This is taking place at the La Défense Arena in Nanterre in France. Saturday, 20th May, 8 p.m. sharp. Already set. That's in May. In June, he already has a show lined up in London on the 3rd of June at the London Stadium, 5 p.m. sharp. Let me show you the ticket prices in France. Take a look at the floor plan. You'll look at this. At the top there it says floor, available 4 tickets. Prices start from $376. This is the black area where you see the seam. That's where the stage is set, and you've got all these different seats that, depending on your proximity to the stage and your line of sight, that's how ticket price goes. This is 300. Convert 376 at 740. That's almost almost 200, almost 300,000 naira. Yeah. There's another one. Wait, it gets better. These ones are available for $625 to see Burna Boy in France. France has a $3 trillion economy. Per capita GDP there is about $44,000, as opposed to in Nigeria, where you're a $440 million economy, your per capita GDP is barely $2,000. Burna Boy, he dares not go to France and go and tell them there that I'm doing you a favor by coming. Our lack of purchasing power, in fact, in his, I don't know if you played his statements or you should read his statements on What's Trending yesterday, where he said that infrastructure deficit was the reason why he was late. They couldn't handle his sound. He now sent out a call to investors saying, I'm going to build the necessary infrastructure. Can you imagine an artist saying that he's going to build his own infrastructure to be able to perform to like? So when you look at a Thames, when you look at a Wizkid, when you look at a Burna Boy and all these artists, they tour around the world, yet they do not tour here. They only come and play maybe Easter, maybe Christmas, and then there's this attitude they have to where it's like, I'm coming home. They're not able to make enough money here when they do. They should be able to. Think about the O2 Arena and the duality where you can have a sports event there. You can also have a concert. We have lost out, like we've lost out in mining. Our entertainment sector has lost out, where our own artists are basically foreign artists. Did we not talk about GDP here? Where we looked at the GDP contributions to the entertainment sector is less than 0.1%. So, you know, if Wizkid made headlines 2 weeks ago by announcing that tickets in his shows now will now be free, why should Wizkid come here and say that his shows are free? Is it because of patriotism or what? When you've got a massive population and stadiums that should be able to handle these concerts, and think about the ecosystem around these concerts. You have people that can sell food, they can sell drinks, you can tax them, you can get all these things from these big concerts, but yet we are not able to profit on it. And then you've got the biggest artist who is from Nigeria coming to make disrespectful statements because he just doesn't see the value in performing here. Finally, we end with South Africa. Today, January the 4th, fuel prices are coming down in South Africa. The regulatory authority has announced that. Why? 1, the rand is strengthening. 2, oil prices are seeing them dip a bit with China opening up and the anticipation of higher demand. The strong currency, the rand, is the reason why they are paying less for fuel in South Africa, even though that is a deregulated country.
And you know why the rand is strengthening? Because mineral
mining. Thank you, sir.
Is strengthening.
Thank you.
You see,
thank you.
The Honorable Minister came here yesterday.
That was a great interview. You guys, you grilled him.
He tried his best
to pick it
but
up.
He didn't cut it for me. With all due respect, what is that? This country is rich.
Rich
See,
country.
Lotus, the 50s, the 60s, that's why I was pointing it out to him. I think we had the Nigerian Bitumen Corporation way back 1910 or 1912. We've been putting bitumen out. Columbites, tin in Jos.
I mean, it's just...
Jos was the hub because of mining. You had so much. Then coal, the Colliery mine. You remember the Iver Valley?
Enugu is known as coal.
All of that.
Yeah.
A lot of this prospect we can't do. Let me tell you something. When the minister kept on saying it takes investment, I was just looking and laughing. See, go to Guinea with the uncertainty in Guinea. As of 2017, the Chinese government, Google GDP of Guinea, I think it's about 10, 15 billion, less than 20 billion.
Yeah.
The Chinese government was ready to give Guinea a loan that is what their GDP for their bauxite mine in Guinea. That's Guinea, where there's a lot of uncertainty in the system. We are not ready. We've not put the structure. That's why the likes of... Have you ever seen the likes of Rio Tinto come into this market?
Exactly.
Have you ever seen the likes of BHP Billiton come into this market?
It's just...
And that's why I kept on saying, since most of the things we are still doing now are the reforms since 2006 when I think Madam Ezekwesili was there. So we have not done it, and that's why you see, because we've not done anything, that's why people are coming to cash out with our mining sector. See how much they are stealing in smuggled gold. The one they can estimate from the Ijebu-Jesha belt in Olesha alone is well over $3 billion. And yet, mining is not putting anything to the economy. So the minister has to double up. Concerning Burna Boy, see, purchasing power parity
very low.
Is low. And that's why when we keep saying that this government has failed, Nigerians have become poorer, dollar was over 100 naira, over less than 200 many years ago, and now things have changed. They think we are lying. They say our amount is smelling inflation. But inflation is the tax poor people pay because it creams off your wealth. And that's why we say this thing President Buhari is doing now again, that is saying let's securitize ways and means, breaking the CBN Act because you want to pass the buck. Let's us ask them, what did they do with the 22 trillion loan at first?
Probably
because
use it to pay salaries.
Use to pay salaries. Is that good? Is that good thinking?
Nobody can tell you that money
the Japanese man will say, "Yoi shina, yoi kangai." Good thinking, good product. We are not yoi shinaing. We are not yoi kangai. And now we want to break the CBN Act. So when we see all of this, how can we have Burna Boy come perform here? But that's not to exonerate Burna Boy.
Oh yeah, it was disrespectful. Yes, it was disrespectful.
And it was a free show.
No doubt.
Let me just piggyback on where Rifai ended, particularly with Burna Boy and the purchasing power of Nigerians. Brutus, yes, he's making a lot of money in Paris, America, but he's also making money in Nigeria. Let's not take that away from us. The tickets for his concert was 30,000 naira. The report
that's minimum wage now.
The report from the concert is that 30,000 people, over 30,000 people attended. That's the basic tickets. We had table tickets, we had VIP tickets, we had other, and then of course the sponsorship, endorsement. He's making money. If not, trust me, no matter how magnanimous he is, he won't come back to Nigeria and come and, so he is. The only thing is that unfortunately, as you mentioned, there's a lot of potential in the entertainment industry in Nigeria. PwC did a report. And they said that in 2016, Nollywood alone was worth $3.6 billion. In 2021, we're supposed to have doubled to $6.4 billion. As with the mining sector, other sectors aside oil that we've just become so fixated on, we have potential in many other industries that Nigeria isn't putting enough money in terms of building up that sector. I speak for the entertainment industry this morning, that there's a lot, we are killing that sector that is so ripe. And guess what? Other countries are mining, let me use that word, from this particular sector that we aren't. And another thing, before I hand over to Doctor, is this. How many of these artists pay their taxes in Nigeria? Why? Streaming platforms are domiciled abroad. So guess where all their taxes are going?
Overseas.
They're going overseas. So a lot of potential, unfortunately, not tapping into it.
Well, when you compare, plans for Burna Boy's performance in Europe to Nigeria, maybe an unfair comparison. Because you are dealing with two different cultural systems. Now, one of the complaints that Burna Boy put up, which I said, well, that should not have been, enough excuse to either embarrass his audience or, talk to them in an arrogant manner, is that there were issues with audio. There were issues with organizational capabilities, which was how I was saying yesterday, that Wonder X, the organizers of that event, would have to offer explanations to the audience. What were the problems that they have? Now, if you are comparing in terms of management to what occurs in Europe, that may be a missing point. The other thing, of course, is the environment, the ecosystem. All those countries you have in Europe, they have what they call cultural policy. That cultural policy connects that interface within the creative sector, the private sector, and also the public sector, and you have government supporting. In Nigeria here, we pay lip service to it. We don't even have a cultural policy. We don't even have an endowment fund for the arts. So you have to look at that superstructure instead of, just blaming the end part of it. But this does not excuse whatever may have happened at the Burna Boy concert, but we need to think in terms of the larger picture. And it's doable because other countries have done it and are doing it. Now, as for what the Minister of Mining said, I think, well, you know, whatever anybody may say, he made the point that in the last 10 years, some progress has been made. The only thing to say is that, well, this administration has just about 20 weeks to go.
Yep.
So some of the things that he has done or that government has done through his ministry, what can we hold on to there? Ajakuta still, we asked him yesterday, is he sure that the transaction advisor and the 11 bidders who have shown up, would that process be completed? He says they are looking at March. Maybe it won't happen.
It will not.
And maybe another government will come and will just abandon it and we will begin again. That's part of our problem.
Yeah.
2, there's no argument about Nigeria having mineral resources. We're even more endowed than other countries.
Yes.
But this is not yet a mining destination. The petrol that the crude oil that we're mining, we're not even doing it well. So that even the president was expressing concern yesterday that it's important that all agencies meet the production targets. Otherwise, the fundamentals of the 2023 budget will be derailed. 3, we have not managed to de-risk the mining sector in Nigeria. Our iron ore grade is very low. We have a company called Ziniumco, Nigeria Iron Ore Management Company, somewhere in Itakpe. It's not producing anything.
Right.
We don't have the necessary infrastructure. If you go to Australia, we went to Australia once. Mining was one of the things that Nigeria went there to discuss. But how much progress have we made since then?
Right.
But he is optimistic. I think his optimism is okay. He says, for example, illegal mining, the more players come into the scene, then, of course, legal players will crowd out the illegal miners. But that's a long-term thing. We have to de-risk, and he talks about data. Do we even have geological surveys?
It's shameful.
In this country, we don't have it.
No, but they said they have MCOs now.
What is the quality? What is the quality? What is the quality of what they have?
We have to still have a data problem in this country.
These are some of the concerns. But we all know the problem. What Nigeria needs is a leader who will come and address these problems one after the other. Thank you very much, Roberto.
Thank you.